Hello, good morning, and welcome to the September Lunch and Learn event. Thank you all so very much for joining us this morning. This event is brought to you by Clean Coast Texas, which is a program of the Texas General Land Office administered by the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment. My name is Christina Lopez, and I work at the Meadows Center at Texas State, and I am going to get us started this morning. First off, I would like to begin with some housekeeping items to keep everything running smoothly this morning. So first, please stay on mute. This will really help us with our audio quality. For the event video, you can have your video on or off. It is whatever you prefer. But please note that this meeting is being recorded for later viewing. Today, we will be using the chat function for questions and for introductions. So please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. We would love to hear your name, your organization, where you're joining us from, and also maybe what's something crazy that you found on a Texas beach, or what is your favorite Texas beach to visit? So to begin with some introductions, I would like to introduce my colleague, Jenna Walker. She will be our tech support for this event. If you have any questions or concerns during the presentation, please send her a direct chat. Jenna, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Walker. I'm the Director of Watershed Services here at the Meadows Center. And I would say my favorite beach is North Padre Island. And I love when my children find the whole sand dollars to bring to me.
Those whole sand dollars are quite magical. Thank you, Jenna. So the overview of the agenda for today, we will be hearing a presentation from Jace Tunnell titled Nurdle Patrol Citizen Science Project and Stories of Ocean Creatures. We will have a Q&A session following that presentation. So again, please use the chat for questions. We will get to those when the presentation ends. All right, and now I would like to introduce from the Texas General Land Office, Jason Pinchback. Jason?
Good morning. Thank you, Christina, for setting the stage for us and the calming voice to get us in the mood. Good morning and welcome to another installment of the Texas General Land Office Clean Coast Texas Lunch and Learn series, where we connect with local coastal water resources and ways to understand and enhance the management of stormwater runoff and the related pollutants. My name is Jason Pinchback. I'm the Water Resources Manager at Texas General Land Office under the leadership of Commissioner Buckingham. Clean Coast Texas is here to serve coastal communities by providing local governments, developers, and the general public with information and tools to better manage non-point source and stormwater quality. The tools and guidance provided through Clean Coast Texas can help coastal communities implement measures to reduce the impact of development on the environment and protect natural resources that support a thriving Gulf Coast economy. We have many different resources that we offer available on our website. A couple off of our menu of services includes community planning and ordinance development, stormwater retrofit design and construction, water quality analysis, grant development and management, green infrastructure demonstration projects, and other water quality management strategies. To help us do this, we formed a partnership with Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, Texas Community Watershed Partners, and Texas Sea Grant. I would like to thank and acknowledge Meadows Center for Water and the Environment for co-hosting and providing technical support for this Lunch and Learn event as well as previous ones. Today's featured speaker is Jace Tunnell. He is the Director of Community Engagement at the Harte Research Institute for the Gulf of Mexico Studies at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi. Jace is the founder of citizen science project called Nurdle Patrol that tracks plastic pellet concentrations internationally to create awareness of plastics in the ocean and develop new policy based on the data. He directs and produces a video series about items washing up along the Gulf of Mexico beaches to help promote awareness on Gulf processes and interesting creatures in the ocean. His conservation efforts include educating the public about plastic pollution, marine science, and protection of our natural resources. Jace received a master's degree in marine biology from Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi in 2001. So many folks are probably familiar with him, with Jace Tunnell, whether it's one of his earlier videos looking at stormwater cups, and I think we'll have a link to that coming up. And that was a part of a Boy Scout project with his son, and that's a great way to visualize how stormwater runoff can impact coastal waters. And then in 2018, Jace came to visit with us and some other state agencies to bring our attention about this strange and weird word called nurdles. And yes, we did sit around and talk about nurdles and just kind of glab over the how weird it was and what exactly did it mean. But that was our first introduction to nurdles and why they're important and what they do. And today, Jace is going to share some of that information with us and other information related to it. So without any further ado, Jace Tunnell. We're not hearing you yet, Jace. You might be muted. And you're on camera, but we're not seeing your presentation yet.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you see my presentation?
Not yet. It never fails, Jace. It works perfectly beforehand, and then something weird happens, but we're not seeing it yet. I'll let you know when we do.
Okay, I'll stop sharing and then I'll share again.
Yeah, try it again. I could see it on my end, but I know it does take a minute to load. So go ahead and share screen one more time.
Oh, okay.
I think it's because you have all of those big, amazing pictures in the slideshow.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me you can see this now.
I can see it. Jason, can you see it?
It might just be the way the view is set up on my screen, so if you can see it, great.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, I'm very excited to be able to present to y'all today. Thanks for having me. You know, anytime I get to talk trash, I'm all about that. Like Jason said, I'm at the Harte Research Institute here in Corpus Christi, and I'm gonna talk to you about a couple of different things today. Some of it is about marine debris. Actually, all of it's about a certain type of.
I apologize for interrupting you, but it seems that I'm the only person that can see your slides.
Oh. Okay.
So what I can do is I have your presentation handy on my computer, and I can drive for you if you'd like.
Okay. Well, let me. Okay, I guess try that.
All right, let me give that a try. And you'll just, can y'all see the slides now?
Yes, looking good. Can see it in the screen, and Jason's on the side. Yes.
All right, perfect. So Jace, just tell me next and I will move it along for you.
Okay, let's go to next. Okay, so I always like to start out and kind of explain marine debris and kind of in the big picture of the Gulf of Mexico. And so there was some research that was done. I guess this was back in 2016, 2017 timeframe by some researchers at the University of Texas Marine Science Institute, where they went along the Texas coast and they looked at 6 different areas for marine debris accumulation. So look, they would go out for 2 years. They went out every month and they would clear 100 meters of beach from water line to vegetation line and bring it back to the lab and, you know, categorize it into over 50 categories. And they would look at type of plastic, the color, the turtle bites in it. So just collecting all kinds of data. But at the same time, there was a couple of other groups in other states in the Gulf of Mexico that were doing the exact same methodology. So they were using the NOAA Marine Debris Program methodology for trash accumulation. And what the end result was of that study was that they found that there is 10 times the amount of trash washing up on the coastline in Texas compared to any of those other states in the Gulf of Mexico that were sampled. And it had to do with the loop current that goes around the Yucatan Peninsula and then goes around Cuba and then ends up going up the east coast of Florida in the Gulf Stream. But it creates these eddies that anything in that loop current gets pushed up to our shorelines. So a lot of this stuff I'm going to be talking to you about today kind of relates back to, why we might have a lot of marine debris on our shorelines. It's not necessarily from people going to the beach and leaving their trash, but we find stuff from all over the world washing up. Okay, next slide. And so if you're interested in hearing about, getting updates weekly about stuff washing up on our shoreline, you can go to the Harte Research Institute YouTube channel and subscribe there, and you'll get notified whenever we upload a video, which is every Monday at 1 p.m. We'll talk about new stuff washing up, or there's our Facebook page at the Harte Research Institute as well. Okay, next slide. So some of the items that we find and we do videos on, this is just a small sample. When I was with the University of Texas Marine Science Institute, I had done about 160 episodes. So that tells you how many years, I'd been making videos about stuff washing up. But now I've been over here at the Harte Research Institute for about a month and a half or so. And so we've started doing this now. So if you want to look at the old stuff, you can go to the Mission Aransas Research Reserve YouTube channel and check out some of these old ones. And this is just kind of a flavor of it. We talk about species that are washing up. We talk about odd trash things. So you can see here, the one that says my leg, that was a prosthetic leg, we think, but it was wearing the same color pants as I was wearing. So that was odd. A can of cigarettes from some other part of the world, mermaid. And then natural stuff like manatee seagrass. So there's always stuff washing up where we get questions about, what is that? And so we try to answer those questions. We do some investigating and then put them out in a video type format. Okay, next slide. And then on Fridays, we do a post on our on our Facebook page, the Harte Research, talking about what items are, and those are done weekly. So I go out to the beach weekly and assess, what's washing up. And then we do a post on Fridays and we label everything. So we're trying to educate folks about what's washing up, what some of the processes are. And that's items washing up is natural and not natural. So you can see here the turtle excluder device, which is on shrimp nets. It got cut off somehow and ended up washing up. So we're able to talk about, what are the hazards of that out in the ocean, or what is it actually used for when it's put on the shrimp nets properly, stuff like that. Okay, next slide. I keep pressing the next button on my computer and it doesn't work. So, okay. I found over 30 messages in a bottle over the 6 years that I've been doing beach surveys. And some of them have some really interesting stories. This one right here that you see, it's a color drawing. This was an 11-year-old girl that was sailing around the world with her family on a catamaran. And when she went across the equator of Brazil, she threw this message out. It was all in French. And so, but it washed up a year and a half later up on the Texas shoreline. And so I had to get somebody to translate the letter into English. And then once I did that, I was able to get their address, and I mailed them a letter, and they ended up mailing me back like a month later. It was super cool. But a lot of different stories with those bottles. And so if anybody's ever interested in hearing more about those, you can go to the YouTube channel actually on the Mission Aransas Reserve, and there's about 3 or 4 videos of some of those messages we found. Okay, next slide. One of the other cool things we found is these big rubber bales, and they're actually like sheets of rubber that are folded together, and then a big wrap of it on the outside of it. And so when I first found one, I tried to cut into it, and cutting into rubber is not easy because, I was thinking, well, okay, this is my payday, right? It's full of money. It turns out it's just, it was from a ship that was sunk by the US. It was a German ship. It was off the coast of Brazil in World War II. It was sunk, and they think that the ship is breaking apart now, and all these rubber bales are floating out of it off the coast of Brazil and then washing up on the shorelines of Mexico, Texas, and even in Florida. And so real interesting stuff there. Okay, next slide. We also find a lot of scientific equipment that washes up. One of the more common ones that maybe y'all have seen, if you spend any time at the beach, are these weather balloons. NOAA sends up about 90, I think it's a little over 90 of those a day in the US, and over 900 of them worldwide per day. But they're collecting data through satellites on all kinds of information that helps them predict the weather. And then there's some of these other ones here, even ones that you can buy. So you see the one in the middle, it's a device that you can purchase from a company, and then you can put it out into the water, and it'll give you, you can watch it on your cell phone. It'll tell you the current, how fast the buoy is drifting, what the wave height is, the water temperature, all kinds of data like that. Okay, next slide. And then y'all might have heard of these creepy dolls that we find. There's all kinds of theories of where these are coming from, but none of them really look the same. They're all kind of different. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about this and you want a laugh, you can go to John Oliver, type in John Oliver beach dolls, and he talks about these. The ones that we're holding, these are in his little 10-minute bit. Now, he does have some bad language in there, if anybody's heard of John Oliver, but it's super hilarious. But okay, next slide. Okay, so let's talk about nurdles. Nurdles is, we have this project that UTMSI has the project, and I'm working on it here at the Harte Research Institute, and it's Nurdle Patrol, and it's citizen scientists going out looking for small plastic pellets at the beach, along river banks, in lake shorelines, creeks. They really can be found anywhere. These are the raw material to almost everything plastic, and they can get out onto the ground at the manufacturing site, during transportation, which in the US, a lot of the transportation is through rail line, also through trucks. And then, they sometimes bag these up, and then they'll put them in containers and then ship them all over the world to factories that then melt them down, add color to them, make them into an actual product. So we're finding these in massive quantities in certain areas and at certain times. Over time, we found out that there's certain conditions where we'll find a lot of these. And so I'm going to go into detail about that. Next slide. These small plastic pellets are a real problem, mainly for wildlife. So you think about birds, sea turtles, and birds, or fish. These are kind of the main impacts that we're finding. In this document that you see here, there's a photo of it. It's a technical document that was put together by the Environmental Protection Agency back in 1992. So this tells you how long this has been a problem. The report's actually called Plastic Pellets in the Aquatic Environment, Sources and Recommendations. So in there, they describe the problem of these plastic pellets in the environment. You can see the black and white image in the middle there. That's of the intestines of a seabird. There's probably 10 pellets there, and that was the cause of why that animal died. In this document, they list about 80 species of birds that they knew about at that time that were eating these, as well as fish. There was like 4 species of sea turtles. Now, most likely what happens whenever an animal eats 1 or 2, they probably just pass it right through their system. But when they eat a lot of them, so where the concentrations are high of these plastic pellets, and they eat these, if they eat a bunch of them, it can twist their intestines around, so then they can't eat anything natural. It can block their intestines, so they end up starving to death. The other thing is these things act like sponges in the environment, and so you think about human health impacts, and how that would impact humans is if something is eating these, that the chemicals come off of it. And the chemicals I'm talking about are like PCBs that are like in your light fixtures. Think about PAHs that come out of your cars. There can be really high concentrations on the outside of these nurdles. And so if the animal eats those, and when it's in their body, if those chemicals come off of the nurdle and go through the stomach lining and into the muscle tissue that then we're eating, then that could be a problem. And so you think about fish and stuff like that. We don't yet have that answer, but there are researchers that are looking into that. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll be able to have an answer to that. Okay, next slide. There was a nurdle spill back in 2018, like what Jason was talking about. And we tried to figure out who was going to monitor what. It didn't really follow or fall under anyone's jurisdiction that we could find, because, if there's an oil spill, there's all kinds of federal and state agencies that take charge to clean it up. But with nurdles, it is a petroleum product, but it doesn't create a sheen, which that's where there's issues of like, well, who's responsible for cleaning it up? And so to be able to track how long the nurdles would be around after that spill in 2018 in Corpus Christi, we started up Nurdle Patrol. And we got a Facebook page so that we could all communicate. There was going to be 3 or 4 of us that were going to look along North Padre Island, Mustang Island, and really that area is about a 40-mile stretch of beach. And the Facebook page was how we were going to communicate. Well, after about 2 weeks of this Facebook group being online, we had about 300 people on there, and there were groups, individuals and groups in every state along in Mexico and within the Gulf of Mexico for the U.S. side of things that wanted to get involved and say, hey, we want to know if these nurdles are coming up on our beach. So it quickly grew into something that I couldn't manage by myself anymore. Really, we had to create a website to where everything was automated, because people were sending me emails of how many they were finding, and I was getting it off of Facebook, and I was trying to map it all into a PowerPoint, and like a map in PowerPoint, which is very simplistic. So anyway, now what I'm going to show you coming up here is going to be what it's evolved into and what the data is telling us. But how we go out and do a survey is we just spend 10 minutes at the strand line. So once you're there for 10 minutes and you count how many you find, even if you don't find any, that's data to us, that's 0 found. You go to nurdlepatrol.org and then you put your information in there and it'll show up on a map. And so I'm going to show you some of that data and explain a little more. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. We ended up getting a publication of the methodology so that everybody, in the science world, we want to have the methods published in a peer-reviewed publication, because for 2 reasons. One, we wanted this because we wanted researchers in the future to be able to feel confident about the data, to be able to use it, and to be able to be replicated. If they wanted to go out and do a survey, it could be replicated. And then we also wanted it to be used in litigation. So knowing that the data is collected the same way by everybody, and it can be compared from one site to another, is very important when an organization is trying to make changes through litigation. And so, okay, next slide. And just so y'all know, that publication is free to download. You can type in Nurdle Patrol methodology, and it's all free to download and share how you like. So this is, once you go out and you do a survey, you put your data into the data reporting form, and it shows up on this color map. And this color map tells us what concentrations have been collected by one person in a 10-minute period. And so you might go out with 20 people and y'all might all sample for an hour. But when you go into that database and you put in I collected, 5,000 nurdles in an hour and I was with 20 people, the database will automatically split that up into a standardized number. And that's what you're seeing here is a standardized number. It divides how many people there were by how many nurdles were collected by a 10-minute period. And so you can compare one site to another site. And these were all collected by hand only. So we don't use any sieves, no shovels, no nets, anything like that. So that way it's all collected the same way. But if we look just at the data here, the colors, the greens are 0. And then the warmer the color gets, the higher the concentration gets until you get to the purples. The purple is over 1,000 in a 10-minute period. And so you can look along the Gulf of Mexico here, and that's really where the only place you're seeing those purples. And along the Mississippi River there off the coast of the Louisiana, off of New Orleans, you see a purple, but that was during a spill. There was a big spill there of a barge that had a container that opened up, and it was Dow Chemical pellet bags that spilled out. Now, if you look at Texas, we have a couple of those. And so let's go to the next slide, and I'll kind of show you a little closer what we're looking at. So this is the Gulf of Mexico. You can really see on the west coast of Florida there that there's a lot of greens. That's because there's very few manufacturers in Florida. You really don't get any manufacturing until you get up to Pensacola, which is in the panhandle there. And then as you go into Alabama, you go over to Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, you get more and more manufacturing of plastic occurring. And so you can really see some of these it's not just a coastal issue. You see some of these that are inland, right? Well, some of those are along railroads. Some are in lakes that have a manufacturer that's just upstream. And so this really, you can find nurdles anywhere. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And so let's look at Texas. And so up near Dallas, you see all those reds. That's 101 nurdles to 1,000 nurdles being found. There's a group up there that does surveys, and they have looked along the drinking water lakes for Dallas and Fort Worth and found some pretty high concentrations there. But if you follow upstream, what goes into those lakes, there are railroads and there are plastic manufacturers up in that area, and there are distributors. So the distributors are the companies that are just getting massive quantities of nurdles, and then they're bagging them up, putting them on pallets, and then shipping them around somewhere, or they're putting them into a factory might be putting them into other melting them down, making it into products. So remember, they can lose these pellets at any part of the value chain. And so okay, so let's go to the next slide. And wow, that's not very, very clear. But the main thing is if you look at Galveston here, the concentrations of purples, the purples alone, you can see those colors there. Those go way up, almost even into downtown Houston. And there's about 55 plastic manufacturers around the Houston area. And then you factor in all the transportation. So there is rail line, there's trucking. There's a lot of factories that take those pellets and melt them down and make them into products. And then there's distributors that are just packing them up and then putting them on ships and shipping them out. So there's a lot of activity around plastics here. And so that's why we're seeing such high concentrations. And this is why it's important that when we think of solutions, that we think big picture, and it's not going after, really a single company, but it's going after, and I don't mean to say going after, but it's looking at how we regulate these companies at a statewide level. Ultimately it'd be nice if it could be done at a federal level, but, looking at statewide and how these companies are permitted, which looks at, how they handle and package and, trying to keep these nurdles on site. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay. Now look, this one's clear. I don't know what the deal was with that last one. I'll look into that. But so this is Corpus Christi. I saw in people's comments, some of y'all like to come down to Corpus and for vacationing and stuff like that. Well, next time you're out, it's pretty common to find, over 100 nurdles in a 10-minute period. So y'all could really load up your glass jars that you bring out. Now you'll notice there's some inland along the bay. Those are kind of lower concentrations. Remember that water moves in and out of the bay with our tides. And so it's not necessarily that we have plastic manufacturing going on here, which we do, but it might not be from those facilities. It could be from, the coming in from the ocean and the passes that we have. Of course, we do have a lot of railroads. So you can see inland, there's like this straight line of yellow and, one orange. That is along a railroad. And so we tell people, don't sample along railroad. It's dangerous. But there are people that have sampled along railroads, actually over 100 surveys along railroads. And so it has given us new light on, what some more of the problems are and where we need to concentrate on trying to fix the problem. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the latest stats is we've got over 8,000 volunteers that have sent data into the nurdlepatrol.org. Over 19,000 surveys now at over 7,000 sites. And actually our partner, so I saw Tracy Weatherall is on here. She's our Nurdle Patrol assistant. And so she does everything Nurdle Patrol. And she just put together our quarterly report that we have to submit for the groups that are funding the Matagorda Bay Mitigation Trust, which funds a lot of our work, and the NOAA Marine Debris Program. We have 345 partners. So I need to update this slide, but that you can imagine that is a lot of partner organizations out there doing a lot of good work, gathering volunteers in their community, making this their own citizen science project, and then putting their data into nurdlepatrol.org, which was the whole point of this project, was that communities can make change in their own places where they live. And it's worldwide now. I believe we have like 25 countries that have put data into this. By far, the United States and Mexico are the ones that have the most data put into it. But anywhere in the world, they're able to use this free program. We've also sent out a lot of teacher kits. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that next. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we have these partner startup kits. And so, with the idea of wanting other organizations to, build up community support in their area, we created these startup kits that have 100 glass sampling vials in them, about 25 information cards. This presentation is actually on there, minus the beachcombing stuff, but it really is in t-shirts and buffs. We put some fun swag stuff in there, and it all comes in a duffel bag. But we really give organizations the tools they need to be able to explain what nurdles are, how they're getting into the environment, how groups can go out and do a survey, and then, really start to gather data where they live to see if there's a problem. And it's super simple to get one. It's only, you go to our website and it says free startup kit, click on that and fill out the form, and we'll mail one to you. Now, the one caveat is you have to have you have to do one 10-minute survey per month. Very easy, 10 minutes a month. And then you also have to give us your logo to put on our website as a partner. And so it's pretty simple to get one. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and I'll tell you about the teacher kit. And so we have these teacher kits. We had teachers saying, well, we might not really go out and do surveys, but we want to teach people, we want to teach students about, what plastics are, what nurdles are, how they're getting into the environment. And so the education team there at Mission Aransas Research Reserve developed a curriculum by grade level. So it's K through 12th grade. Once a teacher gets this teacher kit, they put the flash drive in, or they can go to the website. The website also has this information on there. But you put in like, oh, I teach 8th grade. So, and then you download the curriculum for 8th grade, and it allows the students to get together and develop solutions for fixing the problem after they learn about what the problem is. And so there's 6 vials of nurdles in there, and the students can get into 6 different groups where they work together to try to solve the plastic pollution problem. So real interactive and great. So if you know of any teachers, those are free as well. There's a link on the homepage of nurdlepatrol.org to be able to get those. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, man, what can be done? That's kind of the big question. We think that stricter stormwater and wastewater permits at the state level is where the biggest impact can be. You know, if language is changed in those permits to say there is 0 plastic pellet discharge allowed, that would allow the regulatory agencies to be able to go in, do their inspections. If they find nurdles, they can say, oh, well, you need to do best management practices to prevent nurdles from getting out at this location. But we're going to be back and do another inspection. And if we find nurdles, then, you know, we're going to have to fine you or something like that. You know, there needs to be swift enforcement on that. Ultimately, at the federal level, what we would hope for would be that these would be categorized as hazardous material. And currently they are not. They are categorized the same as like dirt or gravel or something like that. So they don't even, you know, say there's a big spill. They don't have to go to any kind of special waste facility. They don't have to be, you don't have to log how much is disposed of. So by categorized as hazardous material, it would change the way that it's packaged, the way that it's transported. It would change really the whole system of why they're getting out and how they're getting out to the environment. But the issue is it will cost money, and there will definitely always be accidents. But currently what we're seeing from when folks are collecting all the data is that, you know, you can go out and collect 100 nurdles and they will all look different, because that's a chronic problem of nurdles being lost on a daily basis over many, many years. Because if it was like a one-time spill, all the nurdles would look the same because it'd all be from one company. Okay, next slide. Okay, so if you would like more information about this, definitely nurdlepatrol.org is the place to go. Like if you don't remember anything else that I talked about today, nurdlepatrol.org has a 4-minute video on there that talks about everything I just talked about, but sums it up real succinct. It shows you how to do a nurdle survey, and it shows how to put the data into the database, and then what the overall goal is. And so that's a real simple one that you can go to. And then the Facebook page, there's about 3,000 people on the Facebook page now, and it's a good way to be able to find out, you know, any kind of news articles that come out about nurdles, the latest on Nurdle Patrol. You know, people are posting what they're finding and when, and, you know, if there's an event or something that goes on, they put it up there. So it's just a like-minded community. There are actually, it's a private group, so I have to approve you to be in there, but we've never denied anybody from being in there. So there's folks from state agencies in there. There's folks from just the general public, of course, and volunteers, but then also from the plastics industry. You know, they're watching this page, and you know, they don't want to be discharging plastic pellets into the environment. That's how they make their money. It's just, you know, there's accidents that happen, and there's better ways of managing it. So, okay, next slide. So these are my kids, Jack and Parker. You know, they ought to be out there picking up seashells and having fun at the beach, right? But instead, I got them out there picking up nurdles. But you know, we know there's a problem. There is a solution. This is 100% preventable. And now that y'all know, y'all can be part of helping to change policy. Y'all can be part of the solution. So I appreciate y'all giving me a chance to talk today. And we'll go to the last slide. And I just want to thank the people that actually make this happen. And these are these organizations right here. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Jace. That was a fantastic presentation. And I can't help but to be in awe over what you've done. And because I recall this very distinctly. One, not having any idea what a nurdle was. So you brought some awareness. And then it seems like overnight you had a network going, an expansive network in which you're collecting data. And it's almost like it felt like it was overnight. I know it took a lot of hard work and many months, but then to develop the network, and then here you are with education kits, doing advocacy work, trying to at least inform folks about different regulation that could be applied. And so you have such a unique blend of you're an organization who does both the data collection, but also on the other side using the data for change. And so just wanted to say it's amazing work that you've done, and it's very rare to see what you've been able to do in a short time. I don't think there are too many examples of that.
Well, thank you. And I know you were there at the very beginning because it was your idea to get all the state folks together to figure out, where do we go from here right after that spill in 2018. So appreciate that. And I don't take credit for all this. This definitely is a team effort. The volunteers are the ones that are making this happen. They're the ones that are putting all the data in there and all that. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Well, I'd like to turn it over to Christina. I know we have a handful of questions in the chat and wanted to go and see if we can begin addressing those. And just as a reminder, if you have questions or comments, please place them in the chat and we'll get to those here in just a second.
Thanks, Jason, and thank you, Jay, so much for your insightful presentation. The first question is, can homeschool groups sign up for kits?
Yes, yes, they can. And, most of the homeschools that we send them to, we send them teacher kits. Kind of the beauty of Nurdle Patrol is you don't need anything to be able to go out and do a survey. We created the startup kits to try to get organizations to get big groups of folks to be able to go out. But really, once all the money's gone and we don't have funding anymore, Nurdle Patrol will continue because you don't need anything to be able to go out and do a 10-minute survey. And so I would say for homeschool groups, please do sign up for a teacher kit. That would probably be the best avenue. And you get we did away with the metal boxes because customs, when we send them to different countries, and you sending 6 vials of nurdles, which they don't know what those are, and they're in a metal box, it looks very shady. So they were always sending, customs would return those right away. So we ended up going to this cute little purse that we have now. So I'd say sign up for one of those to start out.
Okay, great. Thank you for the tip on, how to package them appropriately. The next question is there a strategy for the recycling of the collected nurdles?
Yeah, so as individuals, we are not able to recycle them. They're too small. Most recycle facilities won't recycle anything smaller than a bottle cap. Like straws are hard to recycle. They're so small. There are some manufacturers that can get their nurdles, but once they hit the ground, they're considered tainted. And so, they're not going to sell them back to the client. They would have to take them and recycle them. But if anybody, what I always tell people is like, see, I've got this little vial here of nurdles, and I can take that around to folks, and I put it on my desk, and I talk to people like, yeah, this is what nurdles are. This is what they look like, and kind of spread the word. But if you just don't want them, put them in your kitchen trash bag where you can zip tie up. Don't just throw them in a trash, because they will get back out into the environment again. And so all your efforts of picking those up will be not for nothing, because your data would be into nurdlepatrol.org, but they would be back out to the environment to count over again.
Right, and we don't want to keep doing that. Thank you. All right, ready for the next question, Jace?
I'm ready.
Okay, can you please explain how to recognize nurdles if looking on the ground or beach? They look really small, and I assume they are extremely light.
Yeah, they are. And actually, when the wind gets up to about 20 miles an hour and you find these nurdles on the beach, if you go up and try to pick it up, it will actually, you have to be fast, because once you get it out of its place, it'll start rolling down the beach. But I would suggest if you are at the beach, you go to the high tide line. And so that's where you find sticks and leaves and things like that. That's where the water has been within the last 24 hours usually, and it pushes everything that floats up to that. Usually you go, and if you see other bits of plastic, usually there will be nurdles in there, and you just start digging through that. We're only looking at the surface, so you don't have to dig into the sand, but you just kind of move those sticks and leaves around and other bits of plastic and find them there, and they will be pretty distinct. Other bits of plastic that have broken down from like a water bottle over time or something like that will be irregular and flat. Usually these actually have a shape to them. And so they will be round, oblong, flat. And go on our website at nurdlepatrol.org, and at the very top, you will see the different types and the looks of nurdles. They're all pretty small though. Usually around 4 millimeters in size, like a pea, like a lentil, like the size of a lentil. And also when you submit your report, snap a picture of it. And because we go through, that's how we kind of make sure for quality assurance that we make sure you're actually submitting nurdles and not styrofoam. We don't count styrofoam. We do count polystyrene, but polystyrene expanded is styrofoam, and we don't count that. And sometimes people will take pictures of seeds and stuff, but usually I say if you can use your fingernail, and if it breaks, it's not a nurdle, because there are things that are natural out there that look like nurdles that aren't. But if you can break it, it's not a nurdle. So.
Good tips. Thank you so much. All right. Next question is, have you considered how nurdle spills will be remediated if they are classified as hazardous, as your volunteers will no longer be qualified to handle?
Yeah, interesting. You got to start wearing gloves. I guess, Yeah, I think that's a good question. Nurdles in themselves are not toxic or anything. They're not hazardous, which is kind of the problem. It's once they get into the environment and they start absorbing those chemicals, and they start blocking intestinal tract, that's when they become hazardous. And so that would be, I don't see that them being categorized as hazardous coming along anytime soon, although there are international groups that are pushing for that at the international level. So, we'll have to see where that goes. And what I see happening is just like there's going to be an agreement of how to ship them and store them a little differently than how they have been, at least in the shipping side of things. And there are improvements. The plastics industry is trying to make improvements to both rail line, shipping, and on site.
So you already touched on this a little bit, but the next question asks, are there any health issues with handling the nurdles based on the manufacturer or where they were released?
No, if you were going to be handling them on a daily basis for hours at a time, you might consider wearing gloves, like maybe I should, because I handle them all the time. But yeah, no, just for short periods of time, and it's, I'm assuming somebody's just going to go out, once a month for 10 minutes, maybe an hour at a time. You're fine.
Just don't eat them, right?
Don't put them in your mouth,
Okay.
That's a bad idea.
Right. All right. Next question is kind of a two-parter. So how prevalent are nurdles inland? Are there other types of ecosystems that are particularly sensitive to nurdle pollution, or mostly aquatics?
Yeah. So along rivers, you can expect that would be very similar to along the beach, and same with lakes, anywhere where they were in the water and they had time to be around where there could be chemicals. And then now they're on the shoreline and available to birds. Birds feed all over the country, whether you're on the shoreline or, of an ocean, or you're inland. And so that would always be kind of the number one thing to think about. Now, if you're looking along a railroad, what we have found is that, and if you're the southern part of the U.S., where they have harvester ants, we have found where harvester ants go along, and they, when harvester ants, I don't know if y'all know what these are, but they're like big red ants, and they will clear an area on the ground that's pretty good size, usually about 3 feet across in diameter, and their hole will be right in the middle. And they gather these little pebbles that they put all along so that vegetation doesn't grow up. But these nurdles are the same size as the pebbles they get. And so we ask people, if you're going to sample along a railroad, don't get on they're not going to be on the tracks. The nurdles won't be on the tracks. They're going to be off to the side, because how they fall out is that the caps aren't put on correctly. And so they're falling out the caps. And so they would be, 15 feet away or something like that from a railroad. But these ants gather those nurdles up and they put them at their mound. And so it's super easy. If you're in the southern US and you have harvester ants, you just go to the mound and they've done all the work for you. You just sit there and collect them all. But that kind of information's, helpful. But I'm assuming birds, lizards eat those ants. And so they could eat the nurdles too, I guess. But, really around water is where we're really concerned. And fish, fish are always in the water and can feed on that.
Interesting. Okay, speaking of things getting out and being where they should not be, the next question is, how did your All the Cups video come to be?
Oh, okay. So what's the question? How All the Cups, like
How
what
did
has
that
been
video
impact
come
of
to
it?
be? Yes.
Oh, so it had not rained. That was filmed in Corpus Christi. It had not rained in about 3 months, and it started raining. And I knew what had happened. I knew what was going to happen. Anytime it hadn't rained in a while, people use these stormwater and the ditches as their trash bin, and they think that it separates out or something, I guess. But when it rains, there's like a crazy flush of so this is all the cups. There's a crazy flush of trash that comes out, and what you see is like cups coming out. So I videoed that, and my son at the time was like 6 years old, and I said, hey, it might be impactful if we hear from the next generation growing up that hears about, hey, don't throw your trash on the ground. It's going into the bay and it's bad. And so I had him watch the video and then just talk about it. And so I used his voice for it. And it really had an impact around here in Corpus, actually in a lot of different areas. Houston put it in their museum that has 3 million visitors a year. It's still showing it. It's like looped on there. There was a group in Arizona that works for stormwater that has it on their website. It's like, look, don't throw your trash on the ground. But here in Corpus, it's 10 years later now, and they're now looking at putting trash separators in that watershed, which drains about 10% of the city. And they've increased street sweeping. They've made it to where when you have events that, you can't have your trash cans next to stormwater drain, and you have to buoy them off. There's a lot of changes that have been made just from that one video. It's amazing that what the power of seeing can do.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And Jenna has posted a link to that video in the chat if you're curious. So the next question related to changes is, you mentioned that to help prevent nurdle spills, we need to have more legislation or regulations. Is there pending legislation, or how can we help influence the right regulations, Texas and federal?
Yeah, so there is, for Texas, the Texas Surfrider Foundation had worked with some political leaders locally here to submit a Texas Nurdle bill. And Texas legislature only meets every other year. So they submitted one 2 legislation sessions ago, and then this last one. The bills never made it out. They were killed. But the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, they have improved the language to their permits to the, for not just manufacturers, it's any company has to get an individual permit and or industrial permit. And whenever they get that, there's all kinds of lists of things that they have to do, but they listed plastic pellets in there, and that they have to prevent plastics from leaving the site. So even though that those 2 bills didn't make it out, there were some good changes that were made from them. And I think the Surfrider Foundation will probably continue to push for changes, as well as like the Sierra Club. But there has to be a healthy medium. It can't be like, we need to work with industry and the state agencies on that as well. Now, at the federal level, there is a bill that a senator has put in, and I believe it's currently in the Senate side of things to try to get approved. And it has to do with the handling of plastic pellets by any group that's not just the manufacturers, it's anyone that handles these. And it actually was part of a bigger bill. It was called plastic pellets, something or another. I can't remember the actual name of it. But that we figured out, or they figured out that wasn't going to work. So they pieced out plastic pellets out of it. And so it actually has a chance. Now at the international level, y'all might have remembered the Sri Lanka spill. This happened in like 2021, where they were waist deep in pellets on the beach because there was about 80 containers that fell off of a ship that had nurdles in them that busted open. And it just, they're still this is a year and a half later, and they're still finding nurdles on the beach over there. And they actually use nurdlepatrol.org or Nurdle Patrol's methodology for going out and doing initial assessments every day. So they go out and use that. But that groups that were involved in that are going to the International Maritime Organization and trying to get changes made on how they store these plastic pellets on the ship. Because the plastic pellets are lightweight, they usually go at the top and they can be at the outside. They want to get them stored where they're inside of this ship and in the middle, because if they fall over, then they're not going to bust open. And so there's some changes like that are going on at the international level.
Great, thank you. All right, we have time for 2 more questions that remain. And one of them is, glass collection vials on the beach, will I get fined for having glass?
Oh, well, and the glass vials are this big. So if somebody's going to get you in trouble for trying to clean up plastic pellets, I don't know. I think I try to talk my way out of that one.
Okay, sounds good. All right, next question and last question. Is there a difference between nurdles and microplastics?
No, nurdles are a form of microplastic. So microplastic is anything less than 5 millimeters in size. And so these nurdles fit right into that. Like the biggest nurdle you would find would probably be right at 5 millimeters. But most of the time they're in between 3 to 4 millimeters, somewhere in there. They can't even be smaller than that, but those are really hard to see, at the beach. So
thank you for that clarification. All right, that's all the questions from the chat.
Well, we've had some wonderful interactions here and lots of questions for you, Jace. Fantastic presentation, tons of links here that have been provided in the chat. So thank you so much for making time to share your expertise with us. I'd love to have you back next year to see how things are going and progressing along.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'd also like to thank Texas State University Meadows Center for Water and the Environment and Christina Lopez for co-hosting here, and Jenna Walker for helping with technical and other matters for facilitating this. I'd also like to thank our Clean Coast Texas Collaborative members, Texas Community Watershed Partners, Texas Sea Grant, and of course Meadows Center for Water and the Environment for helping us to work with communities to enhance the management of non-point source pollution and stormwater runoff. Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Y'all take care.